Hello, hello, hello. This is Danny Svias with Unleashed Consulting and the Best Boss Bootcamp podcast. Welcome, dear listener. We've got a super special guest and episode today. I know I say that all the time, but I really mean it this time. We're going to be talking with a friend, a colleague, a client, a coach, a mentor of mine, just this wonderful, wonderful human being, Nathalie Huerta, that I have known for, my God, geez, I don't even, it must be getting on 15 years, maybe even possibly. So Natalie's going to be talking with us about what I hope all of you who are listening either have experienced or will experience, because it's an important part of being a leader. And it's about making hard decisions or being at the brunt end of hard decisions that are hurtful. Sometimes it's part of what needs to happen with being a leader. Oftentimes it is. And so I'm going to be talking with Nathalie about what her experience has been, because I've been with her in some of these very difficult experiences. She's been a leader in both her company and the community. And I'll tell you more about that in just a moment. But first, let me introduce Nathalie. So Nathalie, say hi to everybody first.
What up, homies?
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I just get all warm inside talking to that. So I've told her I've been crushing on her for 15 years in the background, and I still am. So here's Nat's bio. What do you get when you cross a former chubby kid and a former collegiate athlete with a lesbian, a fresh Gen Y entrepreneur, and an ass-kicking trainer? You get the founder of the Queer Gym, Nathalie, of course. For the past 14 years, Nathalie has shaped and evolved the Queer Gym into what it is today, based on her own experience as a lesbian who is into fitness, but totally all over all the extra bullshit she sees that people, especially LGBTQ plus people, experience in a gym. An athlete all of her life and the eighth out of a family of 10, she knows a thing or two about building a community and furthermore, empowering that community to take over the world one happy, healthy homo at a time. Nathalie has been an organizational leader, a company owner, a team leader for like 19 years. So she knows of what she speaks. And more than that, Nathalie, so how I've intersected with Nathalie is through the Queer Gym as a client, but also working with Nathalie on her competence and confidence as a new leader. So we kind of went through that together in a lot of ways. And Nathalie had some hard stuff happen, some hard stuff that was out of her control. And then when she had some control, had to make some very hard decisions. I've seen her do it with her staff and in her organization, her company, the Queer Gym. I've also seen her do it with the community, a big, large community in the Oakland, California area. So there's a lot we've got to talk about and unpack here. So Nathalie, but I'm wondering, can you come on here and just tell us maybe a little bit more about who you are and what you're bringing to the table right now? Just a little bit more about your bio.
Yeah, so I come from a huge family. I have 9 siblings. My parents ran their own business for about 35 years. And I was basically like front row to the whole thing. Of course, you don't know it at the time, but now in retrospect, I was like, I wish I would have paid more attention and taken better notes. I guess I can say now. And yeah, I started the company out of kind of a pure like, fuck it, what I
Yes.
want doesn't exist, so I'm gonna make the shit happen. And that's kind of been the attitude that's kept me here for this whole time. It's just like someone's got to do it, and it's gonna be me. Um, so it's cool to kind of be the pioneer of a niche market like the queer gym, queer fitness. Um, but it's also a double-edged sword because you are the pioneer. No one's gone before you. No one's left breadcrumbs for you to follow. And it's all trial by error, and it's mostly error. And one of the things I like to say now is I don't lose, I learn. As long as you have that attitude, you're good.
Yes.
And, a big shift I've had recently is that um, the point of the game isn't to win. The point of the game is to stay in the game. So, I can use basketball here as an analogy, which is a sport I love. I'm 30, I'll be 39 this year. And, at this point, I'm not winning as much as I used to when I was younger, but I am still winning. I'm still loving it if I can still play it. And because I love that sport so much, I will go to yoga. I will foam roll. I will watch my diet because I love it so much. Like at this point, winning is being able to play. So the same thing for business, right? Like the winning is in being in business. Like how do you stay in the game for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? Um, and so I would say the only thing harder than going through shit is healing from shit.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's, where, I think you and I started working kind of around that. Was first just being like, what's the problem? I don't even see the fucking problem. And even that took years to really understand where these issues were coming from. And then you have the choice to do something about it. And you also have the choice not to do anything about it. The fucked up part about business is that if you choose to do nothing about it or you choose the wrong thing, it will reflect in your business.
Mhm. Mhm.
Clients will see that and your staff will see that. And it's really hard to have a business without clients and without a team.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I really appreciate what you're saying, and it's so easy. Listener, I don't know if you're doing this, but I'm substituting every time Natalie says the business. I'm thinking it's the team, it's the org. So whether you're working, if you're listening to this and you're working within an organization or you're working outside of an organization, it's the same thing. It's this idea of carrying the responsibility of making hard decisions, and learning from them. I mean, I really appreciate what you said that it's. How did you put it? It's not losing, it's learning. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that reframe. And I'm thinking, for those of you that are listening that are managers and leaders and want to continue to be managers and leaders, that's the same thing that Natalie's talking about. If you're going to be, the point isn't to win the game now. It may be just it's to stay in the game and and what, Natalie? And stay in the game and what? And just coast?
So that depends on the person, right? Like there's business owners that I know that are aggressively scaling, and that's their intention. There's others that I know that are looking for fulfillment in different ways from the business, maybe taking more time versus taking more money. Um, I know everyone's after peace. I think that's the ultimate
Ah,
bag right there. It's just,
yes.
because I I've been in the spot 3 times. To the spot is I get to a certain amount of gross revenue, and then the same issue comes up. I kind of dance around it, don't really address it, and then my ship breaks, and then I have to rebuild it again. So the third time this came around, I was like, okay, I'm in year 12 or year 13. I'm like, I'm not 25 when I first started. Like, bitch gets tired now. Like, I don't know if I want to keep at it. But I've been here in the spot too many times to let it win again. And so for me at that point, that meant, um, I had addressed the issue, but like not really. And in addressing the issue, of course, you find deeper issues. And it was just to the point where, because of what I've gone through, dealing with employees and with the community and just people talking shit, the internet, trolls, all that good stuff, um, I just didn't want to be. I was the absentee father, is the way my coach told me. They're like, you come home, you bring home the bacon, you pay the bills, you pay payroll, but like you don't play with the kids. Like
Mhm.
you don't have a relationship with your team. They don't really know you. And I'm like, well, yeah, because every time they get to know me, shit goes south, and then I'm always the fucking bad guy, and I'm the one I was getting talked shit on. So there was this real like, I'm scared to love you. I'm scared to be around you. Like I feel vulnerable again,
Mhm.
you're in my business, and I trust you to run. And so like they just contradict. And um, and basically at that point, it was just having a really raw conversation and being open, because sometimes they're like, well, how come you don't do this? And it's like, I would just say like, no, we're not doing that. But I wouldn't say what led to that decision. Um, and since that conversation, we have 2.5 times x'd the business in the last 6 months.
Wow.
Um, and I think my
Just
big
those conversations. You're saying in part because you were, and it was, and so I think if I may, I'm sorry to cut you off, that there's, you know, oftentimes I work with clients and I say, if things are really bad, you just got to move into transactional, right? I'm going to do X amount of work, get my paycheck, and that's the maintain. That's the absent father that you were talking about. But that's not the best way to be, right? I mean, that's not fulfilling. It's not making the world better. It's just kind of getting by. So you're saying, what I'm hearing you say is, at least in part, to flip that is about is what? Doing the deep dive into yourself, having the tough conversations, what?
well, yeah, definitely eating your own shit sandwich for one. Two, sharing that with your team.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes we have this thing that like we have to feel like we have it all together or like we're the boss and and so like, no, you're a fucking human. And that vulnerability will earn their respect and
Mm-hmm.
help them understand like why some of these decisions happened the way that they happened. But I also feel, especially like when you're working with kind of more of your leadership team,
Mm-hmm.
I always tell them like, uh, I always have to remind them for like feedback, and I have to remind them like, listen, you're in the inner circle for your brain. Like, I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your ideas, and that's also been really valuable. It's just like them feeling safe enough to express their full talent.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
Um, I have a one-on-one with each one on my team, 30 minutes once a week, where we just talk human stuff. We don't talk business stuff. And it's in those little 30 minutes that I understand how to lead them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's in those, it's the little things. And that's another thing that I think for me right now is a new practice. And I learned this from my dog. I have a puppy. Okay. And I grew up with puppies, but Mexican puppies. You feed them tortillas, they sit outside, they shit wherever. Like there's no structure. They're just Mexican wild fucking feral dogs. And I get this puppy and I'm looking on the internet how to train it, and everything's like the white people way. Everything's like, oh, be nice and pet it, and like nowhere does it say beat it with the chancla. So I was like, okay, this is not gonna work, but I'll give it a shot. And basically it's positive reinforcement, right? The dog does something, you give it a treat right away. Like you recognize the positive behavior and you give them a treat. And the more you do it, the more you do it, the more you do it, like it becomes a habit. Versus if you bitch at them like a Mexican does, I did at least, then the dog's just gonna go pee somewhere in private because they're
Mm-hmm.
afraid to do it in front of you. So they're
Mm-hmm.
still gonna do the unwanted behavior. You're just not gonna now know about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so um, we kept having this KPI that was just not making any progress. And at some point they just got, I even got tired about bitching about attrition, right? And so we decided that we're actively working on inversing all of our language. So instead of talking about attrition and like, hey, you lost 20% of your clients this month, blah, 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 you suck. It's like, hey, you retained 80% of your clients.
Oh my God, this is great. Yes.
It's the same KPI, but the language changes, and now it's something that they strive for versus something that they're going to get bitched at for.
Yes.
And so inversing that has been really powerful, and like focusing on the positive behaviors, and then literally giving them a fucking treat. Like, hey, you fucking showed up on time and did the thing. Here's a fucking treat. And to my Mexican self, it sounds it feels a little weird, okay, but it just works so much better. It
Right.
feels better.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Giving a treat feels better than giving a chancla.
Yeah. 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 And promoting success as opposed to avoiding failure. Just, that mindset and language
Yeah.
change is
Or like
huge.
even with clients in fitness, like instead of focusing on losing weight, you focus on building the muscle, right? You can track that nowadays with the smart skills that they give
Mm-hmm.
you the whole little data thing.
Hmm.
And even just doing that for clients, just being like, hey, we're not focusing on weight loss. We're focusing on this muscle pounds going up. And then it's like, oh shit, I got a pound stronger. And I'm like, yeah, you did. And it's just simply
Brilliant. That's brilliant. Thank you for that.
just focusing on the inverse of that, that formula.
Well, it's another KPI, right? But it's a KPI that's about
A feel good one.
moving up as opposed to, yeah, shrinking down. Yeah, that's brilliant. Nat, can you capture anything else that you've learned? I mean, that was brilliant. But anything else that you've learned from about your own leadership, having gone through the ringer with these hard decisions, these hurtful decisions? Anything? What else can you tell us when you look back at the
Yeah.
roller coaster you've been on?
Yeah. I think for me, I'm at a point where accepting that um, if you have problems, it doesn't mean you have a bad business. It just means you have a business. Because if you don't have problems, you probably aren't in business anymore. And instead of beating myself up or stressing out about like all these problems, like, hey, that's just, like if you look at a heartbeat, that's how it goes, right? It ebbs and flows. And if you get a nice steady line, you fucking flatline and you're dead. That's not good for business.
Right.
So I think just just recognizing that business comes with problems and it doesn't mean that you're bad at it and it doesn't mean that they all need fixing because you're just going to stress yourself out. There's always going to be a new bottleneck happening. Um, Culture.
Mm-hmm.
I used to kind of like blow off company values and mission statements.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what I think has been the big, from that hard conversation we had to have that since we 2.5x the business, that really formulated our values and our culture. And that's something that I wish I would have understood
Mm-hmm.
much earlier in the game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because that's now, like all the decisions go through those values as a filter.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
takes away some of that ickiness or like some like because like sometimes you have to make decisions that are the right decision but feel like shit.
Mm-hmm.
And it allows you to like take that feeling and address it and like, okay, it's the company values, we're all here for the same thing. I just have to be the one to deliver the news, which still sucks. But sometimes the stress just comes from having to make the decision. Once that decision is made, you have a little bit more peace.
Yes, I love that. Yeah. And again, listener, if you don't have a business, but you have a team, you're in an organization, everything that Nat's saying is still just as true, right? So um, it's still about setting up everybody for success. It's also about, I mean, even the idea of creating values for your team, like spending some time creating values. Makes as much sense as it does for an organization because or for a company like Nat's talking about, because it is that first lens, that filter. It's what you can put your decisions up against and through, even the painful ones to yeah, because if they're not aligned with your values, then there's some real issues that are going on. But if they're hard decisions and hurtful decisions and they're aligned with your values, you're on the right track. I mean, we have to lean into something. Um,
Yeah, it's no
yeah.
different, right? Like I think that, for your own life, you should have your mission statement and you should have your values. Your marriage should have something similar like that in place. Um, it just makes the decision much easier simply because you have some bumper lanes to help you kind of stay in align
Yes,
with what you're
that's
trying to do.
exactly. All right, so now I got two questions to kind of finish up. So the first is, how would you advise newish managers, inexperienced managers and leaders who are inevitably going to be facing hurting somebody in their decision? They need to do it. Is there any advice you could give them? And secondly, what would you say to the more experienced leader and manager about what you've learned about resilience and how to kind of weather this?
Hmm. So for the first, I would say like clear expectations. So like for us, it's a checklist of things that need to be done. They're all hyperlinked with how to do the thing videos, and they're also scheduled. I think that's a big one that a lot of people miss. So it's like, here's what you do, here's how you do it, here's when you do it. And that may seem micromanaging a little bit, but most people have a hard time managing their time period, right? At least that's what I have found with employees, and helping them set that structure for themselves. So having those three things in place, and then letting them know ahead of time the minute things start to go awry, versus waiting and just hoping like they don't know that you're even thinking about that.
Right.
So the minute that you start to feel like I had to do that today, and be like, hey, out of 10 right now, you're at a 6, and this is why.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? I'm curious, how did you get to a 6? What happened? So like that constant clear expectations and constantly giving them feedback, and ideally positive feedback. No chanclas.
Mm-hmm.
And the resilience part, for me, a big piece of that is self-care.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Like, to me,
Mm-hmm.
I define self-care as the actions that align you with the things you want to manifest, because they're not going to come if you're not in a place of receiving them. And yeah, I mean, if you're not taking care of yourself, you're going to show up bitchier, angrier, moodier, period. And it's hard to lead with positivity when you don't feel so positive yourself.
Love this human being. Love her so much. Thank you, Nat. That was all wonderful, just wonderful. So folks, if you're interested in hearing more, seeing more, search out. We're going to put the link in the show notes, but the link to the Queer Gym. The Queer Gym is now, Nat still heads it up. It's intended for LGBTQ folks, but it's also for folks that are supportive and allies, right? Unless something's changed dramatically. And it's now completely virtual. So no matter where you are in the country, in the world, if you're interested in something like that, I really want you to take a moment to, right? It's still the website, right? thequeergym.com. Go and check it out. Get in touch with Nat. We'll also put Nat's contact information in case you want to reach her directly. I hope you soaked up all the pearls of wisdom that Nat just dropped on us. Some really great stuff about what it is at the beginning when you're having issues in your own leadership development journey, but also what it is even on the other side of it when you're trying to when you're really looking to be successful and happy and really kind of to the next level. So, Nathalie, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to offer?
Keep at it.
Yeah.
You only lose if you give up. You got to stay in the game.
Stay in the game. That's right. You only lose if you don't stay in the game. That's right. That's right. Awesome. Nathalie Huerta, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure, and looking forward to staying in connection with you. And dear listener, thank you so much for joining us on this Best Boss Bootcamp podcast. This is Danny Ceballos with Unleashed Consulting. We'll see you and talk to you next time. Bye, Nat. Bye, everybody.
Bye.